Welcome to the 10th episode of the Filip The Terran Podcast, within which I interviewed Rudy Patel, one of the leaders of beyondGREEN, a biotechnology company focusing on biopolymers, which is an alternative to plastic. And we, of course, went into a lot of detail about biopolymers, how they work, why they are a much better, much more sustainable alternative to plastic. And we talked about the future of the industry and when can we really expect to stop making the plastic problem worse. After the interview, I felt much more positive about this entire situation. And by doing these interviews, by doing this podcast, I'm learning more and more of just how many incredible business people there are in the world. And obviously not just business people, also science people, engineering people, all people that are helping to make our whole economy sustainable. And there's so much progress being made that we don't really hear about. So in this interview with Rudy, I hope that you learn something and you become maybe a little more optimistic about the future of packaging. Really, that's what plastic, our whole plastic problem is really a packaging problem, right? We don't have sustainable packaging. So I hope that you enjoy this episode, and I will see you again soon.
So let's start off. I welcome Rudy Patel to the pod. So I think the best way is for you to introduce yourself to the audience. Who are you? What do you do? And why did you come here to have a chat with me today?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Rudy Patel. I work for beyondGREEN Biotech. beyondGREEN Biotech is a manufacturing and a brand based out of Orange County, California. Our focus is on manufacturing products which are an alternative to traditional petroleum-based single-use plastics. And we do so by, manufacturing blown film products as well as injection molded products. We started off in the pet industry, by developing compostable pet waste bags. I particularly helped with that as I am a huge fan of hiking and nature. And whenever I used to go on hikes, I used to always see, people picking up their pet waste, but then just leaving plastic bags full of it right there on the trails. So wasn't a fan of that. And, once we came across biopolymers, we knew that that was a solution to plastic pet waste bags. And so we started off in the pet industry with that. And then as the years went on, we, wanted to do more to help out. How can we create more products to give consumers the options to stop using single-use plastics? And we did so by creating, trash liners, your home use grocery bags. We've recently gotten the food and beverage industry, which has been great for us, straws and cutlery. And every single day, our mission is to keep on growing our product line so we could offer the market more and more alternatives to single-use plastic. But we used to say alternative, but I would like to say someone brought this up to me the other day, and I liked it. They're like, you're not really an alternative to single-use plastics. You should be saying you're a preferred solution over single-use plastics. And so I think I will stick with that. I like that when to me. But yeah, that's why I'm here. Is I spoke with Filip, and there's a lot of synergy. We're here to help educate consumers on what a true sustainable product is, because unfortunately, whenever the market goes a certain direction, there's always going to be people that are trying to take advantage of it, right? And we've seen so in the green industry by green PE, as they call it, which is actually just plastics with chemicals added to it, which turn into microplastics, which are way worse than, would you rather have one plastic bag or a million fragments of a plastic bag, right? So we're here to help educate consumers on how to choose a true sustainable product. And Filip is doing the same, so I'm here.
Amazing stuff, Rudy. Thank you so much for the introduction. As you were speaking, there was one key word that I picked up, and I think we should dive deeper into it, and it is biopolymer. So what is this biopolymer? Why is it special? How is it better than what you need to construct a plastic bag?
Sure. So biopolymers is also referred to as bioplastics. And the bio term is there because these are polymers that are derived from natural sources. Your plant-based sources such as corn, um, biodegradable polyester. So anything that comes from plants. So biopolymers really focus on the whole circular life cycle of derived from soil-based ingredients and are designed to go back in the soil. So there's a
Mhm.
whole circular life cycle behind it.
Ah,
They are really different from plastics because plastics are heavily petroleum based. You
mhm.
don't find petroleum in biopolymers.
Amazing. So very clearly, it's basically something that came from ingredients. Let's say that were, like when we talk about fossil fuels, right? Which is what is where plastic is derived from, right? You
Right.
could say that a very, 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 very long time ago, it was kind of a biopolymer. Am I right? Because like, let's say hundreds of millions of years ago, the dinosaurs were also kind of like, if a dinosaur would die, would that be also like organic waste? What's the difference between, a biopolymer, which is is it that because it didn't decompose a very long time ago? How can do you get what I mean here? What's the difference between organic polymers, like ones found in nature, and ones that were also found in nature but hundreds of million years ago because of dinosaurs?
Yeah, so absolutely. There's one big factor to it, and the key
Hmm.
differentiator is end life, right?
Hmm.
So
Okay.
biopolymers decompose, whereas your traditional petroleum-based plastics are going to be around for thousands and thousands of years.
Hmm.
Uh, a million years ago, let's say when the dinosaurs were there, or the fossils, right, that we use for plastics was great when it was first invented. It helped create so many solutions to so many different
Definitely.
applications.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, as time has gone on, we've noticed that it's not helping our environment. It's creating more and more pollution.
Hmm.
There is no end life to it. So now there's an alternative, which is biopolymer or bioplastic, which does the same job as plastics, but decomposes. And that's how
Hmm.
we want it to be. So I don't know if you've heard of the five gyres.
No, I haven't.
So the five gyres are, I forget exactly which ocean they're in, but they're huge floating garbage patches in the ocean.
Oh, yeah,
They're like the size,
those of I know.
yeah,
Yeah,
like the
nobody
size of
knows. Yeah.
Texas, right?
Mhm.
So when you see those, majority of the pollution in those garbage patches is plastic products.
Mhm.
If they disintegrated or decomposed, those patches should be decreasing in size, right? But
Yeah.
it's not, and more buildup is happening, and therefore they're growing in size. Luckily, there are a lot of nonprofits that work to, different methods to reduce that kind of plastic pollution, not only from just the gyres, but from many different places.
Mhm. Wow. Okay. So this is like a big thing to unpack, and I was about to dive into it, right? But so obviously you study our current plastic problem a lot, right? So this is like you have to look at the data, you have to compare basically how long, and by the way, you can say that in a second, how long it takes for a biopolymer to decompose. But basically, how bad do you think the situation right now is when it comes to plastic, considering how long it's going to take for that to decompose?
So it's funny you asked that. I guess it's going really bad because there's a trending topic right now on the web, and I came across an article yesterday that people have found traces of microplastics within human blood.
I
So
heard of this and food.
yeah,
Yeah. Hmm.
so the food issue is there, and the food issue is it makes sense, right? Like we're throwing all this plastic waste into the oceans, even on land, and we're having animals which we consume that plastic, and so by association, it's going from them to us. So the food issue, yeah, like there's so many images out there where it's like a fish, what's like a meme, like a fish filled with plastic,
Hmm.
human eating it,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
But for it to be in your bloodstream is a whole nother level. And realistically, I didn't know, or I don't think anybody knows that we would have gotten to this level where, okay, first it's polluting our environment, but now it's like, in essence, polluting our own bodies.
That's
So how
crazy.
bad is the plastic pollution problem? If you ask me, it's quite bad.
Wow. So, well, I guess I could have predicted that a little bit. I mean, like I've heard a little bit about this already. I knew that about the fact that it's already mixed up in food. Obviously, like just because we dump all of our plastic really far away where we can't see it to the middle of the ocean, like there's still massive fish populations there. You know, that would eat
Right.
it. There's birds. You know, it's like it moves around and eventually makes its way back, obviously, into our supply chain, right? And from our supply chain, it gets into our body. So
Right.
yeah, I've heard a bit about this. So obviously, it's really really scary. And now back to so, how long do you think if we were to do nothing and this is just to deal with plastic right now? How long would it take if we were to stop putting any more plastic out there for all the plastic to decompose? What is the usual half life, or how long does it take for like plastic to decompose? Right, the most common plastic that we use right now.
I mean, there's a lot of parameters that go around that. I wouldn't be able to give you a straight answer to that. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, we spent hundreds of years creating this pollution, so it's gonna take thousands and thousands for us to naturally get rid of it. Right now, if everybody works together and comes up with systems to get rid of the plastics, then it's a whole different story.
Mm-hmm.
I would really wouldn't be able to answer that because I don't know um,
Mm-hmm.
what the action plan would be there. But like for instance, biopolymers. Once again, there's a lot of parameters that go around this as well. But if you're just looking at biopolymer themselves, not made into a product, the third party testing sites require them to be decomposed within 6 months. So if you're
Wow.
trying to get like a home compostable certification, your product has to be 90% decomposed within 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Industrial compostable, they have different guidelines for those, but in the industrial compostable product, anytime it goes into a facility, will decompose within a couple of days, right?
Mm-hmm. That's amazing. So basically, if we were to switch our packaging, really, like if you think about it, like packaging is such a massive part of this. It's like really like what we put our food, especially and our products into, to be able to move them around really easily, right, from one place on the planet to another. So if we were to replace the plastic packaging, right, to biopolymers, we would basically be able to, let's say, stop the problem from getting worse, right? Is that correct? Am I right, or is there
Yeah,
more
yeah.
to it?
So you're absolutely preventing the problem from getting worse, right? But unfortunately, the issue is larger than that, right? Because there's a lot of businesses that are just not ready to make the switch because biopolymer or bioplastics, they're going to be a little bit more expensive than your traditional plastic resin. Um, but also then there's so much going on in the economy right now where petroleum prices are increasing. So
Mm-hmm.
those prices keep on increasing at the rate they are. Who knows? And the plastics could be the same price as biopolymers. If that
Mm-hmm.
happens, then there really is no excuse for businesses not to use biopolymers.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, based on the statistics I've seen, it's a growing industry. There's more and more
Mm-hmm.
demand for it. There's more and more manufacturers of biopolymers coming out every day. So we will be there.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a matter of when.
Well, I think there's one thing that's very important, is basically, I'm not sure specifically about petroleum, but I know of many of the fossil fuels, right, that they're predicted to run out around the middle of this century. So in about 30 years, right? So do you know much about this? Do you like track basically the time when, let's say, the competition or like the traditional market, which is causing all this pollution, will potentially run out of supply? Do you have any knowledge you want to share on that topic, or what do you think about this?
I actually don't have too much knowledge on that. The only tracking that I'm necessarily doing is the resin pricing.
Yeah.
Um, when the resin pricing increases, I know there is a short supply and more demand. But I mean, there's so many economic factors that come into play right now, especially where our world is at the
Mm-hmm.
current situation. I'm not too sure about when that supply would run out, to be honest.
So what about the supply of biopolymers? So of course we keep saying biopolymer, 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 but what is really the supply for those biopolymers? What do you actually use if you're willing to share? What how can we understand it better in terms of supply chain?
Yeah, so I'll put it this way. Plastics, when I say plastics, there's not only one type of plastic polymer. There's 1,000 different blends of plastics, right? When biopolymers first were introduced, there was maybe one blend or two blend of biopolymers. Now, every day as new manufacturers are coming out, they're coming out with their own blends of biopolymers. Biopolymers is not a product, it's a category, right? And within that, you're going to have different types of polymers. You're going to have your PLA, which is polylactic acid, which can only be industrially composted. It can't, it's that blend is not suitable for home composting, right? Because it needs higher temperature to decompose. And then you have your, like let's say, for instance, there's BASF, which is a United States-based biopolymer manufacturer, and their products, that's the company itself has like 10 different polymers, right? Maybe more. And each one has a different blend to it, So it's all about the blending, like what ingredients they put in, right? There's another big polymer called polyhydroxyalkylate, right? Manufactured by Danimer Scientific in the United States. And that one is marine biodegradable, soil biodegradable, water biodegradable, or saltwater biodegradable. So each one of these are, in essence, they fall under that umbrella of biopolymers, but they're all different. And they have to be different because they're all used for different applications. What I necessarily use to make bags, I can't necessarily use to make spoons or straws, right?
Yeah.
The blending has to be different. And what we do here at beyondGREEN is we source from some of the largest biopolymer suppliers in the US, and then we also have to use their materials, and we create our own blends often, So blending is very important because, there are times where I could just buy the material and just use that to create a product right away because it was designed to. But certain times there are requirements where we need to blend materials together to make it work for that application.
And what is this blending process, and what do you like blend? So blending is basically the creation of the biopolymer, right? So this is like the chemical process of putting this thing together. What are basically the constituents that you would be using to make this?
So I'll give you an example. Okay, we bought a biopolymer for cutlery, spoons and stuff. Right?
Okay.
We manufactured the spoons; they worked great, but that polymer was not high heat resistant. So when we put the spoon in a bowl of soup, it melted the spoon. So that's where we need to blend with other high heat resistant materials, biopolymers, to make sure that when we manufacture these spoons, they could tolerate heat up to a certain temperature.
And what would they be, those specifically? So what would be, if you want to make a spoon resistant to high temperatures, what would be basically, what do you need to make this? Like what is there a resource? I know like this is like a pretty advanced chemistry in a lot of ways. Like that probably would be beyond my knowledge, but if there would be something that that for a person with no chemical background, like what do you like? Obviously, these biopolymers don't come out of nowhere. They come out from nature. What is it from nature that you would take out to be able to make this blending and create these things?
So
like lowering down the supply chain.
For a lot of these, because we're not a biopolymer manufacturer, right? So a lot of these are already in the market. I can't give you information on exactly what we use to make our products, obviously, but these are, so we have a team in our in our production team that knows how to do the blending. They know, okay, we need 20% of this, 30% of that, and the remainder of whatsoever. So they are able to create the blends based on the application, whatever it is. Right? If a product needs to be translucent, then they have to use more of this to make it translucent, right?
Mm-hmm.
These are already biopolymers that are created and are available to the market.
Mm-hmm.
We just have the team with the chemistry knowledge to know how the mix and match pretty much.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting. And so why is it that this is like only becoming a popular topic or a popular like business venture like nowadays? Why hasn't this become a thing 10, 20, 30 years ago? Or has it? What's your take on that?
So I do know that Europe is ahead of us. Europe is really big on the whole green movement. There are a lot of other small countries here and there that are also big on the green movement. For United States, it is getting to be big now. We have more and more backing by governments. You know, cities are banning plastic bags, or cities are banning plastic straws. Straws is a great example. They started banning plastic straws, and they came out with paper straws. Well,
Mm-hmm.
they didn't think about the consumer. You know, paper straws. I don't know if you've used one. It is.
I did, yeah.
It's not
awkward.
a fun experience.
Mm-hmm. It's awkward.
And so now the need is there, and like the need is motivated by external pressure almost, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this has been around. beyondGREEN's been around since 2016 under our DBA back then, and I have personally seen the increase in demand. You know, in 2016, it was more so an idea that one day we'll switch towards green products, and people were doing it. There wasn't much acceptance from consumers at that time, but as more and more government, a push towards it came around, then people have started accepting it. And actually, you know what? Now a lot of businesses use it as part of their corporate social responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
Sustainability now is like when I do vendor setups, people are always asking me, what am I doing for sustainability?
Mm-hmm.
How are we helping the environment? So now it's becoming a way of work, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so
totally.
Everybody's really accepting to it now, and probably another 10 years, you'll see majority of there's going to be so many companies out there that are creating, alternatives to plastics that we haven't gotten to, which is all great because, I've seen a lot of synergy between these businesses. Like we work with partner businesses that create products that we don't out of compostable plastics, right? So it's going in the right direction, and it's moving quite fast. So I'm happy to see that.
So what do you think is really, let's say, the main challenge, right, for this industry, right, the biopolymer industry, to replace or biopolymer? And is there, outside of biopolymers, is there also other options? Like of course there's the paper straws, like you just mentioned, right? But that like paper straws are also made out of trees, so that's a whole nother topic and a whole nother tangent to go into. But outside of biopolymers, what are really the other main players that you have on your mind? And what do you think is really the path for a shift from a plastic-based economy to either a purely biopolymer-based economy or biopolymer and something else? What is your vision for the future and how it will change?
So I think it's going to go towards biopolymers more because, like I said, there's thousands of different types of plastics, right? And we're getting to the part where there's eventually going to be thousands of different types of biopolymers because manufacturers are creating them every single day, right? New and better enhanced technology, right? Alternatives that I've seen are like bamboo, banana fibers and stuff like that. But those products are cool and they're neat, but there's limited resources for that, right? Whereas biopolymers, the supply is getting there. So I don't see too many different alternatives. I don't think the paper products are going to, like the paper straw products, for instance, are not going to stick around because they're an inconvenience to consumers, right? So while you look at the environmental benefit, you also have to look at convenience to the consumer. That's why plastics were so popular, is because they were convenient to use, right?
Definitely.
So plastics were convenient to use, but they're inconvenient for the environment. Biopolymers, they're convenient for the environment and convenient for consumers. So like I don't see why you wouldn't. I guess the only challenge that I see is getting businesses to be okay with the cost because yeah, it's a premium product. Like it's gonna be
Mm-hmm.
more expensive. It's but like I'll give you an example, right? Let's say a plastic straw costs 1 penny. You're
Yeah.
looking at a biopolymer straw, it's 3 cents.
Mm-hmm.
You're looking at a 2 cent difference. But when a consumer buys a drink, they're buying it for what, like $1.75, $2 maybe. So
Mm-hmm.
you're telling me that that drink can't absorb the cost of 2 cents, right?
Mm-hmm.
For
Mm-hmm.
the overall benefit,
Mm-hmm. No,
and
I see what you mean. Mm-hmm.
or charge the drink 2 cents more. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's not going to stop me from buying a drink, because it costs two
Definitely.
pennies more, right? So it's that we have to get businesses and consumers to be okay with is the costing.
And I think I tell you like what I think of this problem that you're describing right now. It's like why is it not absorbed into the cost of the drink? I think it's a education problem and an information problem
It is.
because I think if there's enough consumers that like understand biopolymers and understand, let's say, the methodology behind all of this and how it works and its benefits compared to like the alternatives, I think when you have enough consumers that desire something, the businesses will do it. That they will make the shift. I think a good example is, for example, you have like all the vegan chicken nuggets in the Burger King. You have this massive shift to veganism, right? And that is like that has been driven by consumers. That has been driven by information and education being spread around veganism, right? So, do you think something similar can happen with biopolymers? And when do you think? Because biopolymers are definitely not mainstream. They're not mainstream, right? They're far from it. Like this is something I've heard for the probably no, not the first time. I heard about biopolymers a couple of times before, but only definitely less than 5 times in my life I've heard of biopolymers. Right, so this is now talking about it more extensively. But what do you think it's going to take, and when do you think they will be mainstream?
I think it's already started. From what I've seen personally at beyondGREEN with our customers, is a lot of businesses are taking the step forward. And if you think of it from a business perspective, it's giving you a competitive edge, right? You're able to use that as a marketing tool, right? So many businesses have actually started to make the transition into products from biopolymers. The consumer push is definitely there, and I've seen, like, when I go out with my friends and family, right, and we go
Yeah.
to a restaurant, they'll be like, "Oh, look, a home compostable straw," or "Look, this bag is compostable." And like I have people giving me like samples of bags all the time. So like people are starting to like they're aware of it. I know that when we have customers email us, they're stoked on the product, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the transition has started,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and it's a little slow just because of the cost factor.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm saying like within the next 10 years, you're going to be on a whole nother level. If we have the same interview 10 years from now, I could probably tell you like we're pretty much done with the transition. Hopefully.
Really? So you're
But
that optimistic? And and by the way, do you? Sorry for interrupting, but do you mean transition for US, Europe, or transition for the whole world?
that's exactly what I was saying, because it varies country by country, right?
Mhm.
The US population, the European population, they're aware. Canadians, because the government push is there, the government education is there, right?
Mhm.
But I will tell you this, like for instance, I was just in India. Ironically, India manufactures a lot of bio products, but they don't really use it, or there's no ethical standards to testing and certification, right? You
Mhm.
can buy a bag in India that says biodegradable, but you don't know. There's no real
Mhm.
standards behind it. Or who knows what's going on in China, right?
Mhm.
Uh, so, yeah, that transition, I'm more confident with, at least here in the United States.
Mhm.
I've seen Europe. I'm not too sure because I don't live there, but like with the United States, I'm confident. I know the economy is going more green.
That's great. I mean, that is still good news at the end of the day. And I think when you have basically, let's say, a developed world economy that is like supporting this product, it
Right.
will also make it easier to make it cheaper and to make it more accessible to the developing world, right?
Right.
So I think that there's a lot of hope right around this. When it comes to now, I want to talk a bit about Beyond Green. I want to talk about your list of products, like basically all the stuff that you guys have figured out so far. And I again, if you don't want to share, your future projects or future plans, then don't. But if there's anything interesting on the horizon, I'd love to hear about it. So when it comes to the product range of Beyond Green, what have you guys solved so far, right, in order to replace plastic and bring in a biopolymer solution? What are your best hits?
Our best hit would be our cat litter pickup bags. That's because the United States started banning plastic bags, single-use plastic bags in grocery stores, and now you have to pay the 10 cents for the reusable one, right? And a lot of people back in the day used to take those bags that they get at the grocery store and then use it to clean up their litter boxes. But ever since that banned, our cat litter bags have been surprisingly our best seller. But like I said, we started with the pet industry, then we moved to home and kitchen. So we have trash liners, we have multi-purpose bags, and then food and beverage. We do straws, and we're takeout bags. So all of these we sell are branded, but then we also do like custom manufacturing, like different sizes, whatever they need, or white labeling, so other brands can join the green movement. And then I think our coolest tool that we have is our composters, right? Because there's so many product manufacturers that make green products or bags, so forth, but like there's really no solution to, you could throw it away and it'll go to the landfill, or you could send it to an industrial composting facility, but there's no real like home use composter that's been out there, right? And we launched ours in 2017, and we have two kinds. One that has the capability to compost pet waste, and another one that's for organic waste. And both of them, they're doing great. They're popular. They're giving each individual the tool and the ability to limit waste to landfills, because the more you compost at home, the less of your waste is going to landfills, right? That gives each person that ability. And on top of that, like I use it sometimes, and like it's pretty cool. Like it's fun, because then you could use that compost and put it in your like garden. We do that, and I guess for upcoming products, we have a lot of developments, but personally for me, I think the most exciting one is we're coming up with more different types of composters. We're trying to increase that range, so different types of consumers can have the option that they want.
And what? So okay, so you have the composting. You have like you had pets, and obviously you still do pets. You have home and kitchen. In the future, right? So what would be the ideal scenario for the next 2 decades, right? For Beyond Green, what is like the ambition? How far do you guys want to go with biopolymers, and what are the big things that you think if you could replace, it could have a massive impact on the environment?
Yeah, the food and restaurant industry, or food and beverage industry, for sure. Like we're going to be getting into cutlery. We want to get into cups. We want to be able to create larger size trash bags. We're looking to come up with zip ties. Nobody's made zip ties out of compostable materials, and that's used heavily in the agriculture business, and pretty much any industry you use a zip tie, right?
Definitely.
That's in the works right now. And then, like I said, our team will get together every couple of weeks, and we'll come up with new ideas, and we go for it. And that's kind of how we expand our SKUs. Packaging is another industry we would like to get into. like those little air pillows that they have, like Amazon ships.
Hmm.
Like we want to get
Definitely.
like that stuff. So like there's so many opportunities that it's unbelievable. Each plastic product that is out there is an opportunity for Beyond Green.
So what's stopping you from taking over the whole market? Like what's slowing you down? Like what do you need in order to do this? I mean, like if this is successful, like if everything that we've said in this interview is accurate, I mean, like what you're doing is incredibly important work. I mean, like this is like if I mean, this is a whole tangent of how bad plastic is, and if for the environment, if we were to find a way, to replace this as soon as possible, it would have drastic implications, very positive implications for the whole world. So, if you, what is that stopping Beyond Green from taking over the world? Let's say or America or USA.
Um, there's a lot of like research and development that goes into some of these products, right?
Hmm.
For instance, like zip ties. Let's say we move forward with that, and you have to create a mold for the injection molding machines, right?
Hmm.
Um, but to keep up with the demand that's out there, you have to create couple molds with a lot of cavities. So you're pumping out, multiple zip ties per shot. Um, so that requires capital. A mold cost could be anywhere from $50,000 to $250,000, even more
Hmm.
sometimes, right?
Hmm.
So it's very, you know, capital heavy for that kind of
Hmm.
expansion. And as much as I want to do all of it, there's always going to be the business person in the business that is going to look at ROI, right? Because if we're spending, let's
Hmm.
say, $300,000 on a project, well, there's got to be an ROI. Otherwise, Beyond Green couldn't survive, right?
Yeah.
So, um, but we're slowly starting to get there, and luckily, the biopolymer industry, like the manufacturers in the biopolymer, at least here in the United States, they're pretty close connected. So each
Hmm.
one, like, not only we don't consider ourselves necessarily competitors, but more partners. Like
Hmm.
what I have the capability to do, my partner or the other guy might not, and what
Hmm.
he can do, I may not be able to. So like we are open to using each other's tools to create the products that we need, and
Hmm.
we have a lot of good manufacturer partners here in the United States, and we all work
Hmm.
closely together.
So all of this is amazing. Like really, I picked up a lot, obviously from this interview so far, and I'm inspired. I feel a lot more hopeful. Like today, I actually had a podcast like 2 hours ago, and I was talking to a guy who's solving the communication in the supply chain of food. And what I found from that conversation, his name is William actually. What I found from that conversation is that potentially what he's doing could one day solve world hunger. Now I'm speaking with you, and what I'm picking up is that potentially we have a solution for plastic waste. So it's like I'm having a day where I'm speaking with people that are I'm surprised, like I'm kind of a little shocked of how, like the news seems very very good. I mean, like this seems amazing. How do you feel like about the future? Being working on something, most people think that we will not solve the plastic problem. I'm pretty sure the main I like most people I think view climate change, environment in a pretty negative light. I think a lot of people are very depressed and think that humanity is going to end. But they don't know people like yourself. I think that's really a big value of doing this interview is to speak with people like you and to speak with other people who are solving other problems. How do you feel personally about the future of, let's say, in terms of beyond green, yourself, plastic, but also humanity at large? What's your outlook on that?
See, I think it's good. I know my generation here in the United States. I've seen how proactive they are towards the whole green push. So here in the U.S., I feel great. I'm confident in my generation. I've been to other countries though, and it's people are so like um, what's the word I'm looking for? They're so used to like littering and this and that, and like they're not properly informed, like we discussed earlier about the harm of plastic, or maybe they are and maybe they don't care, right?
Hmm.
So certain countries, I'm not sure, but those countries today are the biggest contributors to the pollution. So to change the mindset of people within those countries is going to be a challenge for the ones, that have already accepted and have moved towards the green products. How do we do that? How do we go into another country and help educate? And even if we help educate, a lot of these countries are lower developed, right? There might not be resources they can provide to a lot of the people. So outside of the United States, in certain parts of the world, is not going to move as fast as we are, right?
Definitely.
And that's the unfortunate part, like I was talking about India earlier. I was in India and I saw a cow and it was eating trash and it consumed a plastic bag. That
What the? You saw that? That's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
And like that was like very painful to watch,
I'd say so. Yeah.
But like, how do you change that? Like that is going to take a lot of people working together to change. Like that can't be done by me alone or Beyond Green alone. It's going to take a lot of people.
And are you guys doing anything with India? Because you guys are from India, like you and your dad, like you guys are an Indian family, right? So do you guys do a lot of work back in India? What kind of relationship do you guys have with
So
India?
we used to distribute in India. We used to manufacture there too. We've slowed down our distribution there, just because there's, like I said earlier, there's so many manufacturers of bioproducts there, and like to mix and match material, this, that, and they have pricing which is unbelievable and can't be matched. If you're a true green product, you can't match it. And so we've slowed down there, but we know that we want to go back and target that market as well. So I know my uncle, he lives in India and he's going to be looking forward to spreading the Beyond Green word out there.
I think that would be great. I think like India, like I know a fair bit about India, and I know the pollution in India, and I know the difficulties of dealing with these problems in such a heavily populated country, right, which is still developing. It will probably become a very important country globally in the next couple of decades. So already, really very much on the way. So I think the environmental problems of India will become the environmental problems of the world. This is like soon enough we will have no choice but to figure out a way to help like outside of our own country. We still have this very nationalistic point of view where it's kind of like, oh, we take care of us, like forget people in another country because they have some kind of border. It doesn't actually like scientifically or logically make that much sense because we have one planet. It's like someone litters, so it throws a bunch of garbage into a river in India, and that goes to the Indian Sea, and like couple of years later that might flow into the Pacific. So it's like there, and then goes back into the food system of the US, for example. So even if you're trying to have this nationalistic separation from the problems of other countries, you are actually failing. You're just not realizing. So it's all connected.
And you said it, because like I've been to India and there are some people that are so into sustainability, they're so eco-friendly, but you said the one thing, and that's the population size, right?
Yeah.
So even if you have 40% of India that is completely green, they're eco-friendly, the 60% is so large, that you got to convince that 60%. So that
700 million people or something like that.
Yeah,
That's
and
insane.
So many other countries like that, right? Like I think, if I'm not mistaken, China was buying plastics from other countries to recycle and repurpose, but then like only a fraction of it was recycled and repurposed. The rest was just trash, right? So they were polluting or something. But like, I don't know. So we gotta spread this, globally to make a difference.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of problems yet to come, but I mean, I'm still very, very hopeful about this. So, I mean, to finish up this episode. It's really been a pleasure. I want to leave off with one final question for you, right? And this is for the audience. So, anybody that wants to become involved in the biopolymer movement and companies like Beyond Green, how do you suggest someone, let's say the age like 17, 16, 17, 18, didn't go to college yet? what do you suggest for young people or even older people who want to like switch and want to get involved? How would you propose that they go about joining, a company like yours or another one trying to solve this problem?
Yeah, well, I mean, first thing first is they got to incorporate the green lifestyle themselves, right? They got to use the compostable products. They got to know composting. We've had people that have joined our team that don't come with any knowledge on composting or compostable products, and like, it's a very, you know, a complicated industry to be in. There's so many moving parts. There's the compostable and the biopolymer side of it is one thing, right? But there's so many laws and regulations that go around it, right? So the first thing to do if you're interested in joining something like beyondGREEN is to involve yourself in what's out in the marketplace right now. Try to see if you could differentiate what a plastic product or a fake compostable product feels like compared to an actual one. Just like learn more about biopolymers, learn how to compost at home yourself,
Mm-hmm.
because you'll see the progress and you'll know after a while of doing it certain many times that like a bag will compost in 3 months if I have X amount of oxygen, available
Mm-hmm.
and so forth. So it's just really educating yourself. Um, it's a fun industry to be in, that's for sure. And the opportunity is unbelievable for, us and our competitors. And you always get interesting projects, that's for sure. But the only thing I would really suggest is, first incorporate the green lifestyle, be sustainable, and educate yourself on what's out there and what can be replaced.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So, look, thank you so much for taking the time for the interview today, Rudy. It's really been a pleasure, and I'm very happy with the work you guys are doing. Really, like this is I really appreciate it, and I really hope that beyondGREEN is going to go really, really far. And yeah, I really wish you and all of you guys all the best. And thank you so much for joining today.
Thanks, Philip. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Ciao, ciao, Rudy. Bye bye.